Teslas are awesome, but they can't take you everywhere. And if you want to do a little off-roading, that's where an e-bike comes into play. And I have this e-bike, which happens to be my first, sent to me by my friends at Hiboy. This is the Fat Tire P6. I've been using it for about a week, and I have a lot of thoughts on it, and I want to show them to you. So I said before, Teslas can't take you everywhere. They are awesome vehicles, and when they can't take you to places you want to go, oftentimes you're going to have to do something else. And I have the Hiboy P6 Fat Tire mountain e-bike here to show you. And I think, given that you like EVs, you're also going to like this too. Now, before we get to all of the nitty-gritty details on this mountain bike, how well it works, how well it rides, what conditions can I take it on, let me show you what it takes to get this thing out of the box. And let me tell you, this box is not light. The bike itself weighs a full 65 pounds, and the box is actually quite a bit heavier than that. Once you pull everything out of the box, there is some assembly that you need to do, although the bike isn't completely disassembled. One of the first things you're going to do is you're going to attach the handlebars. Now, all of the gears and all the cables are already connected to the handlebars, but get your handlebars attached. From there, you have to add the seat. You have to put the front wheel on the bike, the pedals, and last but not least, the electric light. And once you've done that, the last thing you have to do is inflate your tires. Now, they recommend up to about 20 PSI in these particular tires. They come mostly deflated, so you're gonna have to inflate them with an air compressor. And it just turns out Hiboy has a pretty decent air compressor slash vacuum that you can use to inflate these tires. You can find that on their website. Or you can use any other type of tire pump that you might have around the house. Now, this particular e-bike has a rather large battery. It's got a 13 amp hour battery, and it runs on a 45 volt system. The battery is located in the central part of the bike, and it is quite heavy. Fortunately, it has a key. You can remove the battery if that's what you want to do, and that feeds into the next big thing with any e-bike, and that's the motor. This motor on the back of this Hiboy P6 is a 750 watt Bafang rear hub motor. Now, if you're into e-bikes, you've probably heard of Bafang as a brand. It's kind of the general standard as one of the best motors that you can get on the market for a reasonable price. So between the combination of the battery and that motor, this e-bike can take you as far as 60 miles on a single charge if you're using it in one of the 5 pedal assist modes, which I'll show you here in a bit. Or you can use the twist throttle to go completely electric if you don't want to get any exercise in at all, and it'll take you a full 30 miles on charge, and it will drive you as high as 28 miles an hour. Now, this bike right here is about $1,000 on their website, but if you use the checkout code IowaTesla, it will save you 7%. Now, $1,000 for a bike sounds like a lot of money, but if you shop around, you're going to find that $1,000 for this level of e-bike is actually very price competitive. So I already told you about how fast this thing can go, but how well does it get you stopped? Well, this thing has some mechanical disc brakes, and they get you stopped pretty darn quick. They're not as good as a hydraulic disc brake, but having a disc brake over other types of brakes seems to work rather well. The other thing that this e-bike has is it has a half twist throttle, and from what I can tell, a lot of people either love it or they hate it. I personally love it. I come from a motorcycling background, so having a twist type throttle is very familiar to me, but a lot of people think that having some sort of thumb knob or other way of controlling the motor is a better way to go. It's really down to personal preference. Now, next to that big Bafang 750 watt motor, you're going to get a Shimano gear set. There are 9 gears here to choose from. Now, I'll tell you that this gear set is top-notch in my book. It does a really good job of shifting up and down and locking in quickly, even when you're on tough mountain biking trails where you have to shift quickly under a lot of different road conditions and under a lot of load. Now, let's talk about the drivetrain and what actually touches the road. You're going to notice first off on this big Fat Tire e-bike is that we've got these big 4-inch wide, 26-inch wheels. They are huge, and I'll admit they are a bit heavy, but that's why we've got an e-bike, and there's some power assist modes that are going to help you out. Now, located up front, we have an adjustable front suspension where there are adjustments to allow for dampening control. It works reasonably well. Unfortunately, there's no suspension in the back, but it's got a pretty cushy seat to help you out. So how do you operate this e-bike? Well, there is a centralized display to help you out. It's pretty simple. You hold the left button down to power it on, and you've got plus and minus buttons. You have 5 actually power assist modes to choose from. And how do those work? Well, basically there is a sensor that is mounted at the bottom of where you pedal that senses whether you're pedaling. Some e-bikes actually sense torque. This does not do this. It just senses pedaling and then sends the power to the back. It's a little more crude, but I will tell you that it does get the job done. Power Assist Zero is it turns the e-bike completely off, and you will feel the full weight of this particular 65-pound bike and the large wheels because it has a lot more rolling resistance and it does take a lot more work. Bump it up to Power Assist 1, and in my opinion, this takes the e-bike out of the equation. I've ridden many other bikes that are not e-bikes that are quite a bit lighter and have narrower wheels, and Power Assist 1 makes me feel like I'm on one of those bikes. So if you're wanting to get a pretty decent workout in an e-bike, set this bike to Power Assist 1 and it's going to give you that type of feel. From there, you can bump it up to 2, 3, 4, and 5, and it's just giving you extra oomph. The same amount of effort that it took you to actually pedal in second gear, on power level 5, you can pedal with the same amount of effort in top gear, and obviously you're going to be going a lot faster. The other thing that this bike does is it keeps track of your mileage. It keeps an overall odometer. It will tell you how long your current ride is, and it'll also keep track of your mileage on that current ride. And over to the right, if you're keeping track of your battery, you can watch that too. You don't have a percentage indicator, but it will give you the bars. And those bars will update dynamically based on how much you are using the battery, whether you're doing pedal assist or you're doing full-on twist throttle going all electric. Those bars will kick in and adjust accordingly. Enough talking about the specs. With any bicycle or e-bike, it's all about what can you do with it? What is the ride like? Well, let me tell you that this thing is a jack of all trades. It is an excellent commuter bike. I've ridden it back and forth to work, which is about 4 miles away from my house, and I can tell you that if you don't want to break a sweat, pump it up to power level 5, crank that throttle, do the power assist, and you're going to get to your destination without having any sweat on you whatsoever. But if you want to use it for exercise, bring that power assist down to 0 or 1 and you're going to get a good workout experience. The wide tires are surprisingly stable, especially at high speeds. This thing feels more like a wide tire motorcycle than a bicycle. Incredibly stable, and these tires do a good job of letting you really feel the road. Overall comfort is very good on this bike, and I have no issue whatsoever in using this as a commuter-only bike. However, that's not where the fun happens. The fun happens when you get off of the streets. Now, this thing is a mountain bike, and I actually put it to a test. Not far from where I live is a park, and there is a lot of mountain biking trails to choose from. Everything from easy, swoopy turns to downright gnarly downhill runs with whoops, berms, and jumps. I've taken this thing down all of that. I've beat it to death, actually, and this thing has held up really, really well. I've even got it off the ground a couple of times, and for this old guy, that's saying something. So far, I have to admit that I'm having a lot more fun with this bike than I thought I would. I rode bikes a lot as a kid, not as much as an adult, but I have to admit, this mountain bike it's the stuff. And I want to do a test real quick because I'm sitting in front of a rather large hill. Let me show you. Right, this is a hill. It's a pretty steep climb. In fact, it's in my neighborhood, and my wife and I refer to it as Big Hill. It's pretty steep, and a normal bike, I wouldn't ride up it. But I'm going to take this mountain bike, and I'm going to use the throttle only. And I'm going to see what it can do as far as can it make it, and if so, how fast can it do it in. So I have it in speed 5. And we're going to go ahead and just twist the throttle here and see what it can do. 12, 13. And it's from a dead stop. I am not pedaling. 10. At full throttle. Dipped at about 8 miles an hour. Now it's climbing. I am not pedaling at all. And now we're continuing to accelerate. So overall, I am super impressed with the power of this mountain bike. It has gobs and gobs of power. Quite frankly, it probably has more power than it should. Now, when you're running off-road, handling of this bike is really nice. It's pretty nimble, and if you're in areas that aren't exactly dry, these fat tires actually do a nice job covering a lot of softer surfaces without giving you dug into the mud. You're gonna float right over the top of it. That's where these fat tire bikes work out really well. Now, if you live on the coast where you have some beaches, these fat tire bikes will actually do a really good job on beaches and sand, but me being here in the Midwest, I don't have that option, but we do have plenty of mud when it rains, and this guy does a good job. One thing that I really like about this bike is that it actually looks good when it's dirty. It shows that you're using it as a mountain bike. I think it looks gnarly with the black exterior, and having dirt covering it, I think just takes it up another level, even though I did clean it for this particular video. So after riding this Hiboy P6 e-bike for almost 100 miles, I have a lot of thoughts. I have some likes and I have some dislikes. Okay, let's talk about the likes. The first thing that I have to say that I like is the power. This thing is an absolute beast with power and probably has, frankly, more power than it should. Am I complaining? No way. But I really like the fact that it's got that amount of power. But I said it before, one of the things that I really like about this bike is the stability in its ride on the road and also on the dirt. On the road, even at high speeds, you can let go of the handlebars and it is rock solid, stable. I like the half twist throttle. I do like the fact that it has an electric only mode. That for me is really big in case you need to use it in a clutch situation. When would you use it in a clutch situation? Well, for an old guy like me, you're approaching the top of a hill. Normally on a regular bicycle, you would stop, you would get off, and you would push the bike up the rest of the way. With this, just twist the throttle, and it takes you up the rest of the way. Also, if you're looking to cross a busy intersection, which I do on the way to work, it is really handy in Power Assist 5. Just twist that throttle. By the time you get to the other side of the intersection, you are doing about 20 to 25 miles an hour, and you are up to speed with most traffic. So from a safety perspective, having that backup power is a godsend. All right, let's talk about some of the things about this bike that I just don't care for very much. And they are minor overall, except for one point, which I'll get to at the end. The first thing that I want to talk about are the brakes. The brakes, in my opinion, are a little weak and a little lacking. Even though they are disc brakes, and I think overall they work okay, it would be better if they were hydraulic brakes, but I understand at this particular price point, that's pretty much what you're going to get. The next thing that I'm going to point out, I'm going to harp on pretty hard, are these pedals. The pedals are frankly okay for the road, but if you're doing anything off-road on the trails, they're garbage. They do not hold on to your shoes. There's just nothing there to grab your shoes to hold you to the pedals. And if you're doing a lot of hard mountain biking off-road runs, like I've shown you in this video, it's pretty easy to slip off those pedals. And if it's a little bit wet, it's a little bit slippery, everything is made worse. So if keeping this bike, which I'm definitely gonna do, I'm probably gonna upgrade the pedals. Now, my last complaint with this e-bike is really kind of a personal one for me, and it has to do with some false advertising in the manual. Yeah, there's some false advertising. You see, in the manual, it says that this bike is only good for people 14 to 50. I'm over 50. So I'm proof positive that this bike is actually for just about all ages. All right, there you have it, the Hiboy P6. Now, as a Tesla owner, from a Tesla owner's perspective, I love EVs, but as I said at the beginning, Teslas can't take you everywhere. And when we want to go to those places that you can't take your Tesla, that's where an e-bike will really come in handy. And if you want to take it off-road, this particular bike does a good job with that too.